Amber Alert Podcast.
All right, welcome back. Amber Alert Podcast, episode 114, part 2. I am your host, Amber Starkey. It is a great day to be alive. We're going to get into our conspiracy portion of this episode. This, like I was saying in part 1, this goes back. It's technically going to be like 2 different things, but I put them together because I got to wonder if there's actually like a connection between the 2 of them. They didn't happen at the same time, but they happened, at least there's some overlap in where, and they might be stemming from the same thing. I don't know. And I don't even know how much of this has been embellished, because I understand that's a thing that people get, it's like a game of telephone. Someone may tell you something and it started out real and true. And then over time, when one person tells it to another, details tend to get distorted. And so you don't necessarily know 100% what you're dealing with. But this is well documented. So I believe something happened. And then I'll say what I think may have happened. You can make up your own mind. So what we're going to talk about is something called the devil's footprints. Okay. So I'm going to play a short video that will give you basically the background of what happened, a very short video, which is like kind of cartoonish, but it'll just give you like the background. Then I'm going to read about it. And then we'll talk about the second thing, which may or may not be related. All right. So first video will be very short here. Let me pull it up. Here we go. And can I make this bigger?
One morning in 1855, the people of Devon, England, woke up to something that still has no explanation. It had snowed overnight, and when people stepped outside, they found a trail of cloven hoof prints pressed neatly into the fresh snow. Not unusual on its own, except this trail stretched for over 100 miles across the county, and it never stopped. The prints crossed frozen rivers without breaking stride. They climbed up onto rooftops and continued down the other side. They appeared inside locked courtyards with no way in and no way out. There were no signs of jumping, no sliding, no gaps. Just one clean, continuous trail moving forward as if walls and water were nothing at all. Locals called it the devil's footprints. Clergy spoke about it from their pulpits. Newspapers sent reporters. Scientists came with measuring tools and sketches. The prints were real. The trail was real. The panic was real. 170 years of investigation later, nobody has agreed on what made them. Nobody. Did you know that one morning
so some like obviously theories have been put forth, like could this be some type of animal, which I'm pro doing that. Go look for a natural explanation first before you start jumping into it's the devil walking around. But despite every theory people have put forward, nothing has really been able to explain it. So that's a short just introduction from that video, but I will read about it and show you some sketches. Obviously, now photography did exist. Again, this was 1855. Photography existed, but it wasn't like people had cameras readily available. So as far as I know, there were no actual pictures taken, or at least not that have survived. And the thing is, these were tracks in the snow, and the weather changes, snow and ice melt. So it's not really like something that you could keep preserved forever. So anyway, let's read, and I'll give you bigger pictures than that. So the Devil's Footprints mystery, 1855. The Devil's Footprints is one of the strongest unsolved mysteries in British history. On the morning of February 9, 1855, residents across parts of Devon, England, awoke after a snowfall and discovered a bizarre trail of hoof-like prints stretching across the countryside. Newspapers quickly dubbed them the Devil's Footprints. All right. So what did people see? Witnesses described the tracks as looking like a donkey's or cloven hoof, roughly 4 inches long, spaced in a nearly perfect single file line and continuing for mile after mile without interruption. What made the tracks famous was not their shape, but where they allegedly went. Let me just pause real quick. The shape would factor in, because what animal with hooves has 2 feet that walk in a perfect line? I'm not aware of anything unless you think it's the fawn, Mr. Tumnus from the wardrobe, whatever those are called, those movies and books. I'm not aware of anything that walks on 2 feet that has hooves. So, even that would be weird. But where they went. So reports claim the footprints crossed fields and roads, continued over walls, appeared on rooftops, passed through enclosed gardens, crossed streams and rivers, and seemed to enter and exit buildings without obvious explanation. Contemporary newspaper accounts estimated the trail may have extended as much as 40 to 100 miles, though the exact distance is disputed by historians. So it caused panic. Victorian England was a deeply religious society. Many people believed Satan had literally walked through Devon during the night. Some villagers reportedly refused to leave their homes. Clergy were asked for explanations. Rumors spread rapidly that the prints were supernatural. Obviously, you would probably freak out if you see something walking, you can't match the footprints, and then you're like, look, it walked on someone's roof. It went right over a fence or whatever. This was enclosed. How did it get in and then back out? So the story became a sensation across Britain. The weirdest details, several reports claim the tracks maintain nearly the same spacing regardless of terrain, which that's not normal either. They did not wander like animal tracks normally do. They sometimes appeared to stop and restart. And then they crossed obstacles that seemed impossible for a normal animal. And again, the prints don't even match. Let me actually blow up one of the pictures. And again, it's not authentic. This is what someone drew, roughly what they looked like. So a straight line, just like that, or like this picture, which what animal walks like that? Nothing does, and usually you're going to have 4 feet. So that's why people were freaking out, because they're like, well, what the devil is this? Maybe it is the devil. So why it remains famous, unlike many mysteries, the devil's footprints doesn't rely on a single witness. Hundreds of people reportedly observed unusual tracks, and newspapers documented the event while it was unfolding. The mystery survives because there are contemporary reports. Again, it's well documented, even though it's old. No single explanation fits every account. The story occurred before modern UFO culture and internet folklore. This has nothing to do with UFOs. So anyway, it sits at the intersection of history, folklore, and possible natural explanations. But again, no explanation that anyone's put forward can fit, because you can't match those footprints to any known animal. And even if you could, how are they going to just stay in that straight of a line for, say, up to 100 miles and go over rooftops and stuff? So that's why people were freaking out. I just read that. So the fascinating thing is that the devil's footprints didn't happen in some random place. They appeared in a region already saturated with stories about the devil, phantom hounds, strange lights, ancient ruins, and supernatural folklore. The footprints were reported mainly around the estuary area of Devon, places like Exeter, I don't know how you say it, Topsham, Exmouth, Teignmouth, maybe get better names, England, and nearby villages. The area lies between the coast and the edge of the wild moorlands of Dartmoor. Devon was already devil country. So long before 1855, Devon had a reputation for dark folklore. Some of the oldest legends include phantom black dogs. Let me just say this. I did an episode on black dogs because there's, truckers, and that's not just here in America. That's like in England as well. And the thing is, what's interesting about that, which is why I wanted to do the episode, is that the supposed black dog sightings go all the way back to actually maybe originating in England, and it's well before modern vehicles were a thing. So now it's like truck drivers, people who are driving for extended periods of time, oftentimes during the night and stuff like that. But this happened back when people had like carriages and things like that. So it was a thing in England, and they swore up and down, no, there was it's called a dog, but it's really not a dog. It's unnatural in behavior. It's terrifying. Some of them, just even today, some of the reports from modern day truckers here in America, they see one at a truck stop and it just sits there staring at them forever. Or one they see on the side of the road, and even whether you're drifting off to sleep or not, which hopefully you're not, but they'd see one, and then they say it paces the vehicle, and they're like, first of all, that's impossible. Or they passed one that they saw on the side of the road, and then miles later it's up ahead of them, and they're like, that's not natural. So I don't think they're real dogs. This is why I did the episode on it. I think there is something supernatural happening, and I don't think it's good. Even going all the way back to England when they reported these black hounds or whatever, phantom dogs. Some people took the position they were good. They were like a way of warning people because maybe you are falling asleep while you travel or there's trouble up ahead. So some people thought they were like what is the word I can't think of? Like an omen of, hey, pay attention. But other people describe like that they don't seem good. There's something kind of evil, like the vibes that I'm getting. So when we read about this, about phantom dogs, I think this is probably the same thing that we're talking about. So they appeared in a region already saturated with stories about the devil, phantom hounds, strange lights, ancient ruins, and supernatural folklore. I already read all this. Why am I reading it again? Next. Okay, so this is it. Devon was already devil country. So we've talked about the phantom black dogs, spectral hunting packs. I don't even know what that means, to be honest. Headless horsemen, pixies and fairy folk, the devil appearing on the moors, and ancient cursed locations and burial sites. Dartmoor in particular was known throughout England as a place where the boundary between the natural and the supernatural felt thin. So this is why I always want to go when if I find out about, because I like stuff like this. It's just interesting. And I'm not saying I like believe it all, but I always want to find out if something like supernatural supposedly happened. I always try to go see what the history of the land is, because if you find out that blood was shed on the land, or somebody was dabbling in the occult, that type of thing, then it makes it much more believable. I'm like, okay, so somebody invited, like, literally evil there. Somebody opened something up in the spirit, whether by shedding blood or by dabbling in the occult. So it's actually no wonder that you would see some sort of evil supernatural manifestation. Now, does that mean, do I think the devil actually walked through Devon for 100 miles and those are the prints that they still can't figure out 100 some years, 200 some years later, or whatever, however long it's been, 177? Not necessarily, but at the same time, if something evil, take the Mothman, for example. The Mothman from the whole thing in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. So that was in, I think, the 1960s, and that terrorized that little town for, I don't even know if it was a whole year, but for, somewhat of an extended period of time. And okay, this didn't make the movie. So they made a movie out of it, which I liked the movie fine, but what they didn't include in the movie is there was a Native American chief who cursed the land, which is right where Point Pleasant is. And so for people like me who have a supernatural worldview because of the Bible, and I understand there's obviously good godly angels, and then there's the devil and fallen angels and demonic spirits. If you curse something, like, curses are actually real in the spirit, and so you invite certain entities by doing this stuff. Like, I just posted a short video about what Aleister Crowley did during World War I, and what's his face, Jack Parsons did in the 1940s. They were doing rituals and opening things, in my opinion. So that's real. And so if something ends up in that area, it's no surprise. Like, and this is what, it's not even a mysterious thing. It's like supernatural Bible 101. Where there's demonic behavior by you're going to see spirits. And yes, there is a physicality to it. People actually, can get marked up on their bodies and have entanglements with spirits and things like that. And so if there are footprints because something was walking around that was not natural, I don't think that's like too far to go there. So I'm not saying I think it was the devil, even though they called it that in the newspapers. But if there was something that was able to do unnatural things, and this place already has a dark history, that's probably what happened. Did I read this last thing real quick? Okay, so just to expound on the black dogs and the devil's hounds, one of the most famous Devon legends is the Yeth hounds, or was that say wished or something? They were said to be ghostly black dogs that hunted across the moors at night. According to folklore, the howls could be heard for miles. They chased lost travelers. Seeing them was considered a bad omen. Sometimes they were said to accompany the devil himself. When hoofprints suddenly appeared in the snow in 1855, many locals already had a mental framework for interpreting them as something demonic. So you do have to, and again, like a game of telephone, like I was saying, I understand things get twisted over time and embellished and the details may change, but at the same time you would have to ask people, why would your first assumption be that there's something evil or demonic, you know? And so that's when you start to find out what happened here, or what else, you know, why are you putting these two things together, is what I would want to ask people. Why is that your first assumption, that it's the devil? Which makes me think something must have happened there, which brings us to the second part of this, which is Spring Heel Jack. And people still don't know what or who this was. I'm going to play you a super short video. It's like probably AI generated or cartoonish, but it's just a very quick summary of what happened, and then I'll read some things to you and show you some pictures. But real quick, this will just take a minute, the video, because this is a real thing that happened as well.
Terrifying figure leaping through the night, terrorizing Victorian England. This was Spring-Heeled Jack, a mysterious entity first reported in 1837. Sightings popped up all over the UK, from suburban London to Scotland. This wasn't just a local tale, it became a huge urban legend. Why? Because of his bizarre appearance and incredible athletic feats. Witnesses described him as having glowing red eyes, clawed hands, and even breathing blue and white flames. Some said he looked like a devil, while others described him as a tall, thin gentleman. He was said to wear a helmet, a tight white garment, and sharp metallic claws. Spring-Heeled Jack could speak comprehensible English, adding another layer to his chilling enigma. To this day, the true identity of Spring-Heeled Jack remains one of history's most fascinating unsolved mysteries. Imagine a terrifying figure leaping through
So this is pretty, you know, again, it's well documented that something happened, but where the differences come in is how much has been embellished, or what do people really believe? Was this a person dressed up? Which you can't put it past people. People can put on, I'm sure people have done that to pass for Bigfoot. You know, they've put on a costume and then walked through the woods. So you can't put it past people to put together a costume for who knows what reason, for fun, for fame, eventually, whatever reason. But a lot of people don't believe it was a person because of how he was supposedly able to jump like unnaturally high, and then even like breathing fire, supposedly, and stuff like that. So that's where the opinions differ. But let me read a couple things. Oh no, actually, I'll read that in a minute. Before I do that, let me get to a Spring-Heeled Jack. Is this it? No, sorry. Just bear with me while I get it figured out. Nope. These are all, to go back to the first part, I'll have to read those, but I don't want to just yet. Here we go. Spring-Heeled Jack, the terror of Victorian England. So this began in 1837. Reports spread across England of a mysterious figure known as Spring-Heeled Jack. Witnesses described a tall, frightening man with glowing eyes. So again, that's not impossible today, in a costume. I don't know what they had in 1837. Claw-like hands and the ability to leap over walls and rooftops with superhuman agility. Obviously, some people got hops and they have a very good vertical jump, but most people can't just jump onto a rooftop from the ground. Some claimed he breathed blue flames, wore a dark cloak or skin-tight outfit, and attacked people before vanishing into the night. The most famous early encounters occurred in London, where several women reported being assaulted or terrified by the figure. I believe he tried to strangle he knocked on someone's door. A woman entered and he tried to strangle her. Despite police investigations and widespread newspaper coverage, no one was ever conclusively identified as Spring-Heeled Jack. Some believed he was a wealthy prankster, while others thought he was something supernatural. Reports continued for decades, turning him into one of the most enduring mysteries of Victorian England. Why he's interesting. Unlike most urban legends, Spring-Heeled Jack was reported by numerous witnesses, discussed in Parliament, investigated by police, and covered extensively by newspapers while the events were supposedly occurring. His true identity remains unknown. So let me show you a couple pictures of how different people depicted him, sort of what you saw in the video, but here's one that somebody drew. He looks like the devil, or how people depict the devil, and he jumped like up over that thing because that's apparently something this being did regularly while he was being seen. There's another one. That one also looks like the devil, or sort of almost like how people depict vampires, just kind of like in the face. And then this, I believe, was on the front of a publication or something. And that looks like a cross between the devil and Batman. So, the interesting thing is there's some overlap as far as the area goes where this happened, whatever it was. Again, I like to look for a natural explanation first. So I would, if it were like me, I would try to explain it in a natural way. Like, this could have been a person who was very athletic, or had rigged some shoes. I don't know. I don't know if springs would actually help you. I have no idea. And then you'd have to dismiss the reports of supposedly breathing fire, which could be someone's embellishment of what happened. It depends, it depends. Or there could have been an actual evil entity that showed up and again, I do believe 100% the Mothman thing happened. That's well documented. In fact, the only person who ever got victory over that thing, because there were multiple people in that town who reported seeing it, and it was like, I don't know why they called it a Mothman, but I guess because they thought it had feathers, and it was huge. It had glowing eyes. It was definitely evil. Like, nobody saw it and was like, I wonder if it'll be friends with me. Like, it was definitely evil and scared people. One person, I think his name was Lawrence Gray, if I remember correctly, one person got the victory over it, meaning he spoke to it in the name of Jesus. He rebuked it and it left. And he's the only person who that happened with him. Everybody else was just terrified, and I don't know that it did anything to anyone, but it definitely didn't just like leave when they wanted it to, except in the case of Lawrence Gray. So what is that? I don't know. It could be like in the same case with either the Spring-Heeled Jack or the footprints. If there was something there supernatural that was evil, in the book of Daniel, it talks about the Prince of Persia. So Daniel is praying, and here comes an archangel to answer his prayer. Here Daniel's in Babylon, right? And here comes I think Babylon. Here comes the archangel with the answer when Daniel starts praying, and it took him 21 days to get there. So Daniel's waiting 21 days, right? And then the archangel shows up and said, on the day you started praying, I set out with the answer, but the Prince of Persia withstood me 21 days, meaning there was a spirit, a spirit or a principality over this whole region of Persia, of ancient Persia. So that was obviously a powerful spirit that the archangel had to fight in order to get to Daniel, which is interesting because I remember L.A. Marzulli saying, why couldn't he just fly around? Why did he have to go like through that way? And there's just a way things are done, even in the spirit. You looking at it from where we're at, we're like, well, just go around it, but it's like, if you can fly, then just fly anywhere. But it's like I think there's probably something that's above our pay grade until we're like in heaven, where there are certain channels through which things have to be done. including in the spirit realm. So it's not as simple as just go around or like sneak in a back door, but there's like a way things have to be done. So he had to fight that powerful spirit to get to Daniel. So that being said, there's like a hierarchy, I think, and I don't fully understand it. I have more questions than I do answers, but here's a guess: is Satan is obviously like the top of the food chain as far as evil entities, right? And then you have fallen angels, which we know about from Genesis 6, and some of which were chained up because God was like, you messed up and I've had it. So he chained them up. But here's the thing: when Satan was kicked out of heaven, 1/3 of the angels went with him. So are all of them chained up, or was it just certain ones who were appointed a certain position? And I think what happened is the ones who defiled mankind in Genesis 6, when they took the daughters of men and had that sexual relationship with them, which created the Nephilim. I think those are the ones that God Almighty chained up. Now, that the whole breeding thing is still going on. We're just, of course, told it's aliens, but they're still taking people. They're taking genetic material from them. They have sperm and ovum they're taking from people. So the breeding that started in Genesis 6 is still going. It's just we have modern terms. So I don't think all of the angels guilty of that are chained up, but it does seem like that's your hierarchy. You have Satan, you have fallen angels, and then the question is, where do demons come from? Did God make them? And one of the theories, this is a theory, I'm not making a doctrine out of it because we don't know for sure, but one of the theories is that demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, the ones which were killed in the flood, or the ones that after the flood, it says they came back after the flood as well. And then that's when God appointed Israel to go kill all of the giants in the land. So Goliath was a Nephilim and he had brothers. Og, king of Bashan, was huge. So when these giants were killed, the like spirit of the giant goes where? So maybe that's what a demon is. So they're not actually weren't made by God, but they are like Satan's. Satan's a counterfeiter because he doesn't have the creative power that God has. So what Satan had to Dr. Frankenstein it, right? He had to take something that already existed, which was mankind, and he then had to join that with fallen angels to try to create something, but it's not made in the image of God. And in my opinion, none of those have souls, which is why they're not redeemable, which is why they're going straight to the lake of fire. So that being said, it seems like there are evil entities, and who knows what they look like. Obviously sometimes people have seen demons and things like that. But if there's like a Mothman type situation, what kind of evil spirit is that? And then if we go back to England with this stuff happening, was there something that appeared as a man but wasn't a man? And that's honestly not far from scripture either, because in Genesis 18, it says 3 men, that's 4, 3 men came to Abraham, and when he saw them coming, he said, "Oh, let me make some food for you guys." So they ate the food that Abraham prepared. And then 2 of them go to Sodom, and they're going to destroy the city. This is before Abraham steps in and intercedes. And one of them stayed with Abraham, and it says the Lord. So I think that third one, which appeared as a man, was actually the pre-incarnate Christ. It's like a Christophany where you see him appear in the Old Testament before he shows up in the flesh in the New. So that being said, we know that they were supernatural, and yet they appeared as men, because even the next chapter, when the 2 angels go to Sodom to go get Lot and his family out, the men, which are all gay in the city, they bang on Lot's door and they said, "Bring those men out. We want to like hook up." And Lot was like, "We're not doing that." But they obviously had a physicality to them. They looked like people, and yet they were angels. So there's some overlap there. Even in the New Testament, when Peter's in prison and the angel comes to break him out, it says the angel hits him to wake him up. That's physicality. If it's all just ethereal and it's all just wind, you can't, if someone hit me, a person hit me, I'm going to feel it. But if air hits me, I don't really like feel it. You know what I'm saying? So there's something physical there, even though it's a spiritual or supernatural thing. So back to England, could something leave footprints and not, and be otherworldly? Yes. Same reason if there's a demon in your house and you start hearing things, that's a physical, one of your physical senses is picking that up, but there, you may not be able to see something, but it can move physical objects around, it can leave physical evidence. So there's overlap. So when they say we saw the devil's footprints for miles, and we can't identify these footprints as an animal. They went over a rooftop and over a gate, and it was closed, and I don't know how they got in. And then we have the spring-heeled Jack thing that happened before the footprints showed up in an area that was already considered the devil's country. Yeah, somebody might have invited some type of evil entity in there, and there is a physicality to it. Now, I skipped a couple things I was going to read. Let me go back to them. Okay, so another reason they thought the area had like spiritual, it was like heightened spiritually, is because of ancient stone circles and burial sites. So Devon is packed with prehistoric remains. The region contains stone circles, stone rows, burial mounds, ancient settlements, and megalithic monuments thousands of years old. That's what I'm guessing Nephilim probably built with the help of fallen angel technology, which is how they were able to build all of the massive things on Earth, like the pyramids, like Stonehenge, like the Sacsayhuaman, Peru, the massive stone walls there. So Dartmoor alone has hundreds of prehistoric sites, some dating back more than 4,000 years. For centuries, local people associated many of these places with spirits, giants, witches, and supernatural beings. I can understand why. And then this happened. One event that shaped local folklore occurred in 1638. A violent storm struck the church in the village of Widdicombe in the Moor. What the devil kind of name is that? The destruction was so severe that many villagers believed the devil himself had attacked the church. The story became one of Devon's most famous legends and remained widely known when the footprints appeared over 200 years later. And then you have the Dewar Stone, if I'm saying that right. There is even a location called the Dewar Stone, whose name is linked to an old Celtic word associated with the devil. Local tradition held that the devil rode a gigantic black horse across the moors at night while leading spectral black hounds. So back to the black dogs. Think about that. A region already famous for stories of the devil, phantom hounds roaming at night, ancient sacred stones, a recent memory of severe winters and hardship. Then one morning, people wake up and find hoof-like tracks crossing the countryside. So yeah, you can understand why people would then be like, dude, I think the devil was here, because you already think he has access to the area or has already been like seen by other people. So again, some of that may be embellished stories that have gotten changed as far as the details go over time. But I do always, sometimes if we think something sounds like unbelievable, we tend to think the people living back then were just like idiots. Like they just assumed it was the devil for no reason. And it's like, well, they might have had reasons. There might have been, there are so many places like Dyatlov Pass that I was talking about earlier this week, I think it was, or last week, in 1959, when those hikers disappeared, the 9 hikers, and then they found them later, and some of them had internal injuries and no external injuries. They had crushed ribs. They died of like trauma, but they couldn't find anything on the outside. Some of them had their eyes removed. One had their tongue removed and some soft tissue. And they tried to blame it on an avalanche. They shut down the investigation in like 1959. The Russian government shut it down, and then they reopened it in, it was either 2019 or 2020. And their official like cause of death is an avalanche. It's like, dude, avalanches don't remove people's eyes and their tongue with like surgical precision. That's the dumbest explanation. So but the reason I brought that up is because the indigenous people, I forget what they're called, they raise reindeer. What are they called? The Mansi people the Mansi people who are indigenous to that part of Russia where these mountains are, where the Dyatlov Pass thing happened, they consider that mountain in that area taboo for thousands of years. And they were like, you don't go there. You don't go there. There are like spirit. They called it the mountain of the dead, actually. They said there are spirits there. Their reindeer acted up and wouldn't walk into certain areas. They seemed agitated and afraid and restless. It's literally like the movie. It's the third Lord of the Rings when they're at the base of that mountain, which has the dead army in it, and all the horses are starting to get restless, and Aragorn's like, what's going on? And then the guy from Rohan is like, that mountain's evil. Everyone who goes there never comes back. Of course, Aragorn ends up going in and getting the army, but the point is there's like something wrong with that place. And so people don't usually just make that up for no reason. Usually something happened and then it gets its reputation because something actually happened. And so when you look at it today in modern day, sometimes we're like, well, those people were just nuts. Were they? Or did something happen? You know? And then people just learn, yeah, I'd rather not go there. My animals don't like it. I'm not going up there. And the hikers either didn't know that or didn't care. So I don't think that it's haunted in the sense like you're going to get killed by demonic spirits necessarily. But I think in the case of Dyatlov Pass, because you had some missing things cut out and the injuries aren't consistent, that probably was a human version of cattle mutilations, which are very disturbing. I wouldn't go look that up if you don't know what those are. It's when ranchers or farmers find cattle in their field, which it's dead, and the blood's been drained, and there's no blood on the carcass or around the carcass. You have organs removed with surgical precision. Many times the sexual organs, but even eyes and tongues and things like that. The ground is not disturbed around the carcass, meaning like you can't find footprints, you can't find tire tracks. Scavengers won't even go near the carcasses almost always. The other cattle won't go near it. They're huddled away as far away from it as they can get. Sometimes there's a crater underneath the animal, almost like it was dropped from up high. And then I don't know why someone thought to do this, but in some cases whatever the little instrument is called that picks up radiation, I don't know what it's called. They've waved that over the carcass and picked up radiation, which doesn't make sense. And then even farmers and ranchers have reported oftentimes the night before they saw lights in the sky, like above their property. And then next thing they know, they wake up and they've got a cow that's been mutilated, and other animals have acted, like I said, with the reindeer, upset. Your dog goes berserk. Your other animals are making noises. They're uncomfortable, like something's up. Animals pick up on stuff like that. So, I've gotten off track from England, but the point is, if there is a dark history, especially if someone opened something up in the occult and invited something in the spirit, and then you start to see evidence that something is there, probably somebody messing around doing witchcraft or bloodshed. Even Skinwalker Ranch, as weird as that place is, there's I think I looked into the history of it. There's some burial grounds or battles were fought there. Same with Gettysburg, because people say Gettysburg is like haunted. Which again, I don't believe in the ghosts of people being there, but absolutely there are. I just talked about this recently. Was it last episode? Yeah, about ghosts and haunted houses, because people tend to think, well, someone got killed in this house and people are seeing things, so the ghost of that person is there. It's like, no, that's a familiar spirit. That's a demonic spirit, which is masquerading as the ghost of that person, and it's nothing more than a demon. It just needs cast out. So, that's it. I just found it interesting that I never knew that happened in England, that they woke up and found weird foot tracks that they could not Explain. I did not know about spring-heeled Jack. I don't know. England, again, Aleister Crowley, very famous occultist, was English, and they've churned out some weirds. I mean, England sent the gospel all over the world, which is wonderful, but at the same time, there's some really dark stuff that's come out of England. So, people get involved in stuff, they invite stuff in, and then you have some weird places. There was a guy by the name of Russ Dizdar from Ohio, where I'm from. He was from Akron. I don't live in Akron, but he was from Akron. And he was in the ministry. He did like deliverance ministry. But he also was very, very knowledgeable on the occult, meaning like apparently there are a ton of witches in Akron, which I never knew. But in fact, he was so knowledgeable on the subject that the police department would call him in to consult when they had a criminal case that looked like what they call SRA, which is satanic ritual abuse. When they had a case where they could tell someone was murdered in that way, or even if it was someone who like got away or was they let them leave, they would call him in to consult on the case. And he said there was a particular forest up there. I don't know which one. But he said that's where the witches would do their whatever witches do, their like rituals, I guess. And he said that the phrase, you can feel it in the air. He said that's how it was in that forest, is like you can feel there's demonic stuff that's been like invited here, that's here because of what people have opened up by doing occult things. So, it's no surprise to see that kind of activity if someone opened something up. And sometimes it's as simple as just bloodshed. So my takeaway, I think something happened, something unnatural. I think the footprints probably did have something to do with some kind of evil entity. Don't know what exactly. Could have been a little demon, a little imp. We don't even know what they look like. For whatever reason, the devil's depicted as red with hooves and a spiky tail and horns. We don't even know. We don't know. At one point, we know he was a beautiful cherub before he fell. He was Lucifer, and we do know that he took the form of a serpent. We know he's described in the book of Revelation as a great red dragon. But what he looks like when he's not like masquerading as an angel of light or something, I don't know. I don't care to know, but I don't know. So do hooves have anything to do with the devil? I don't know. They might not. So I don't know, And then the spring-heeled Jack, I don't know. Could that have been an athletic person who wanted people to think he was the devil? That's possible. I don't know. But it obviously was serious enough that it was being reported in newspapers and talked about in Parliament. So something happened. But I don't know. I can't really take a position. I don't know. I lean toward someone probably just invited something evil. And that's why you had weird stuff happen, especially if it's got a history of it. All right. So I am done with part 2. Let me pop these up real quick. These are the platforms I exist on, including TikTok, which I have not added to this list. What am I live on? I'll put things up. I think I need to put it on Substack and Spotify later on. And then if you want to support Amber Alert Podcast, those are the ways that you can. Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. I try to use for those of you who don't know, all these episodes I do usually in one day. Part 1 is like news and politics, which is my least favorite because people never agree on anything. Part 2, I like to talk about this type of thing, a conspiracy theory or something supernatural. And then part 3, I always get into the Bible, which is actually my favorite part because it's the most important thing in the world. It's the only thing that carries eternal weight. Everything else is just like, you know, might be interesting, but is it going to matter eventually? No. But what's in the Bible does. So that being said, I'm going to start part 3 at 7:20. 7:20 part 3. We're going to get into the Bible, do a very basic breakdown of the only way to heaven, which is very important. All right. So 7:20 part 3. I will see you there. God bless you and goodbye.